士統合の術を未だ持ち得ぬ自分自身が例えようもなく不愉快だ。
You'll get there. You'll get there.
その女休まずにおったのか。
いえ。
不細工な知性。貧
Yeah, looks can be deceiving though, right, Medwem?
なぜかようなものから論理の究極とでも表現すべき美しい寄付が泉のごとく
Right, she challenges a lot of his preconceived notions and perception that he had at birth, essentially. Oh, look at that. It agitates him. Dialed in, look at that.
この曲何かかけるか。措置が勝てば措置の望むもの何でも与えよ
う。何でもですか。
Oh.
何でも。
Okay, he's taking
ただし
an interesting approach here.
措置が負けたら左腕をもらう。
Trying to put her up against or in a corner. Yeah, he's trying to get a really specific reaction out of here. Or her, sorry. So is FILMBuFF. He knows, or he thinks he knows.
人の呼吸を乱すもの。
He's not wrong.
欲望と恐怖。
But this right here is an outlier.
欲は目を濁らせ、恐れは足をすくませる。
Again, not wrong. For the most part. He's not going to get the reaction he's looking for. Oh, God. I love her.
何を迷っておる。
ですね、左腕ではなくてですね、いつも私がかけているものではダメですか？
何をだ？
命です。私が負けたらば命を捧げたいのですが、でもそれは逆にとても失礼かとも思いまして、私本当に軍技
is life. Hey, could
要は軍技に生かされているわけです。でもプロの騎士といっても国内王者でさえ収入はスズメの涙です。国の代表に選ばれるにはトーナメント戦で優勝せねばなりません。つまり一度も負けることは許されないのです。
You know, did she unknowingly set a condition?
12人家族で私が今稼ぎ頭ですが、
12.
一度でも負けたら家族で一番の
Alright, then she's just a blind girl, right? In her perception.
私は負けたらゴミなんで
12.
す。
All the garbage.
いいんです。親にずっと言われてきたことですから。ですから私はプロの騎士を目指した日から軍技で負けたらば自ら死ぬと決めております。
Yeah, eye-opening experience perhaps for Medwem, or the beginning stages of it.
問題がありまして。
なんだ。
It's a tough life, man.
負けた瞬間に私はゴミですから、ゴミを総帥様にお渡しすることになってしまいます。
それより措置が勝ったと
Yeah, he sure is.
それがですね、軍技のこと以外あまり考えたことがありませんで、勝った後に考えてみます。
欲も恐れもないと申すか。
Underhanded tactics. Look at this. You know, she's got the king doing this type of thing.
命か。どうやら覚悟が足りなかったのは世の方だ。
Respectable. He realized immediately.
これは世自身の問題だ。賭けはやめだ。くだらぬ真似をした。これでいい。
Yeah. Wow. The first one to indirectly injure the king because of his own behavior, though. Whoa. He did.
これ以上恥を上塗れと申すか。
ネフェルピトを
Neferpito. He's
接合手術を施しながらでも、王ならば対局は可能でございましょう。それが私の
oh,
できる
FILMBuFF.
最大の
The loyalty, the dedication.
それすら叶わぬと仰せ
Perhaps protecting the king from himself.
王自らの手で切り落としていただきたい。
一撃で楽にしてやる。
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
撃て。
嫌です。総帥様のお怪我が治るまで撃ちません。
二度言わすな。
She'll make you repeat yourself.
撃ちま
Yeah,
せん。
yeah. Look at
私
this.
を殺すならば
The perfect foil to the king.
貴様
Use Gungi.
人を呼んでこい。
And that's the effect she has on the king. That's right, Shawpoof. The king is changing, hour by hour, day by day, in her presence.
間違いねえ。人形が全部消えた。
So,
選別を再開したって
Neferpito,
ことか。いや、それはないで
she
す。
had to go, right? So,
王の安全を最優先とする護衛軍がそんな選択はしない。
so even Neferpito has her limits.
この現状よりも深刻な事態が王の周囲、もしくは王自身に起きたと考えるのが妥
Spot on, Nov.
当。いよいよ来たか。
Perfect opening.
千載一遇のチャンス。宮殿内部へ。
Oh.
どちらにせよ。
Yeah, you've got to take the chance. You've got to take it.
今のうちに近づけるところまで近づく。
These kind of chances don't come about.
出口を作っておかなければ、当日の決行自体不可
Oh
能で
boy,
す。
this is high stakes, man.
いつかはくぐらなければならない危険。
It's a key component as well, right?
G2 は失敗したようだな。
Sure did. Goddamn Cheeto, I love him.
お前こそな。
That's such a bro thing. Don't die.
標的はキセル野郎に変更だ。行くぜ。
You're about to get piped, Leo. Oh,
ドクター・ブライス。
Dr. Blythe. Of course. Toy repair.
完璧に直すとなると2、3時間かにゃ。
その間、人形も円も使えない。
Yeah, they showed us just now.
この能力、燃費すごく悪いにゃ。
再生には相当のエネルギーを要するということ。
Thanks for that,
治
Shawpoof.
療の間は私が周囲を見張りましょう。私の縁ではピトーに及ぶべくもないが。
This is a lot of functional information to have.
任せるわけにはいかない重大な任務。
Oh, look how, oh my god, it's like right in the open though, right? Oof. Perhaps it's been built that way,
円を使っている
specifically.
周りが暗くなれば俺は闇に同化し
Shadow Moses, solid knob. Let's go.
焦ってはいけない。
I like this. I like being in his
出口
headspace.
は王に近いほどいいが自由に出入りできる俺と違って
I've seen it, yeah.
シュートたちは一度マンションに
I like how it specifies shoot in this case.
敵に出口の前で待ち伏せでもされた
Oh.
ら絶対絶命。宮殿の周りに近い場所、遠い
Oh,
場所、その
I'm just getting kind of scared for him, you know?
3種の出口を用意して入り口はさらに遠方。宮殿の様子を伺える何箇所かに3種
A lot of options. Good to have a lot of options,
結
right?
構時に最も都合のいい場所で待機する。
Things can change in an instant, so it's good.
その時の状況に応じて
Exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. That bit right
近い
there.
場所、遠い場所、もしくはその中間。奴らからすれば我々は突然目の前に出現することになり、その一瞬の隙を生かして護衛軍と王を分断。それぞれの戦闘が始まる。我々は一勝三敗でもいい。奴らの一敗が
Right. That's the one that truly matters. I spoke of this a few episodes ago.
本来ならもうネフェルピトーの円の中に入り込んでいる。
This is a 1 in a billion chance then.
生きた心地がしないな。ネフェルピトーの円が復活してしまったら
Oh.
近づくことさえ不可能になる。
But he'll feel that soon enough if he gets on the inside, right?
してもまだ打つ手はある。
He'll know how Killua and Gon felt.
近づけ。
現在宮殿内部には食肉用でない人間が3名いる。1人は少女
Who are
騎
the
士、
other two?
もう1人がディー
Isn't Digo dead though? He's just being
ゴ、
used
そ
as
し
a
て
puppet, no?
最後の1人
Who's this?
ビゼフ長官。
Bezef? Ah.
実質この国を牛耳っていた
Right. It makes sense that they can't really let go of him. Let go. So he just kind of moves on to the next regime.
人間で唯一王の側近として許された人物である。逆に敵が紛れ込む危険が高くなると護衛軍が判断した。
Yeah, spot on actually. Yeah, good point. Whoa, new faces.
現在宮殿内には3名の人間と11匹のアリがいるのみである。キメラアントの性質上、すでに師団長と王の間に厳密な主従関係はなく、互いを結びつけているのを打算によるところが大きい。ピトーらもそこは十分承知の上で、与える仕事は失敗を前提として問題のないものばかりであり、よって監視が彼らに任されることはない。
Yeah. I got all my answers. I had a few of these questions actually.
知るすべもないが、彼が単独で侵入するという点において、今が最大
It really is. It really truly is. Bodies? Oh god. Bodies. How about that? Of course. You'll get yours. You'll get yours. Okay, this one seems to have really caught his attention. Oh, Thinker Bell. It's a name. I thought she's a thinker. Palm! Yes! And so she enters. There she is.
Okay, episode 105. I mean, at this point, it truly kind of feels like the arc itself is really dialed in, right? It's in full flow. It's getting to the business end. Right now, of course, the business end might be a prolonged business end, but this is it. At this point, you have Nav Sensei that close to the palace. And then beyond that, you've got his pupil, you've got his student, Palm, making her move, finally kind of entering the game as our, resident master of disguise, right? I mean, I honestly had no clue. I just simply could not know that was Palm. I'm just looking at this person. I'm like, okay. And then, of course, almost instantly, the guy, the guy on the inside, the guy that they have, that moral sensei didn't really like all that much, but he had to keep his opinions to himself as he gets that glare from Nav Sensei, right, a few episodes ago. But yeah, this is it. This is the opening that they were hoping for, because of course the secretary on the inside has a thing. Let's say he's got a thing. Right, he's certainly a bit of a scumbag, right? But he's also someone who's in a position that allows him to kind of survive, right? Because he's kind of crucial to the operations, behind the scenes and all of that. So the king decided, okay, this is not something any of my royal guard is really capable of, and he himself understands that, okay, I'm not capable of taking care of this stuff either. So let's keep him alive. But I do feel like he'll get his as well. He'll get his sooner or later, right? But yeah, this is the opening. Palm is in, and this is as high stakes as it gets, right? Even more so than Nav being that close to the palace at this point. This is the spy on the inside. They've alluded to this through the game of Gungi as well, right? The spy who, this is just my take on it at this point. I'm kind of linking that line of dialogue from a few episodes ago about, the spy not even being a factor up until this point, but then all of a sudden it's taking control of the board, right? I kind of speculated that, okay, the spy could be Palm, right? Because up until recently, or until this episode, I did not see Palm since they arrived, right? Because again, clearly Nav has told her to, hang tight. Her chance, her opportunity, her part is going to come up. And this is it, right? So now I'm really quite excited to see how Palm navigates being around these godlike figures, right? And how, this really unique situation is going to play a part in her own character, progression and development, right? I'm certainly hoping that I get that, and in terms of her ability, right? It's been clear for some time now that, okay, her ability is going to play a part, right? And it's something that, Nav Sensei believes should be used really quite cautiously, right? At the right moment, at the right time. And, her being, or her, getting into the palace and being this close to them at this point, right? That she can see them, that she can be around them, be it the royal guards, be it potentially be the king, and how exactly that is about to play into her ability. Because I'm sure, there's some things that have to be met, some requirements that have to be met, much like Nav Sensei's own portal ability, right? You see at this point, he's got to do the dangerous bit and get into the palace, get around the palace at different parts or in different parts of the palace to install the portals so they can be used in the near future, right? And then, of course, multiple exits outside of the portal as well, right? Really, really clever thinking, of course, keep your options open and, kind of assess the situation as it plays out because, it's not going to be predictable, not at all. Once shit hits the fan, once things get serious, it'll be all about, okay, assessing the situation from a moment to moment basis, beat to beat basis. Because, there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of unknown factors at this point. The encounters with the royal guards, their abilities. It's not going to be that much of a surprise for me as an audience member, but actually, I take that back. I know Neferpito's stuff inside and out almost at this point. I see Dr. Blythe on display, on showcase as well. It's Montuta Yuppie and FILMBuFF, whose abilities I still need to really get a glimpse of, a showcase of, right? And I feel like I'm going to get them at the same time as the characters, right? That are meant to go up against them. But Nav Sensei made a point that I made episodes ago at this point. Ultimately, the one that truly matters is the final encounter. I mean, the plan at hand is really quite simple, isn't it? Right? You need to separate them from the king. Right, of course, easier said than done, but the details of it, the plan itself, it's a simple one, isn't it? Regardless of how difficult it might be to execute in terms of actually separating them from the king. But that's a key component of this. If that doesn't happen, the chairman does not get to execute his own plan, right? And I'm really sure at this point he's got his own plans that he's keeping to himself, right? In addition to the plan that he has set up and shared. But, in terms of Palm being inside of the palace and being really close or in close proximity to these beings, again, people like the royal guards and the king even, I suppose she can kind of pass as a civilian, right? She's a Nen user, right? And not a beginner Nen user at that, right? She's a proper Nen user. So I suppose as long as you're not, exerting yourself or exerting your aura, maybe, she can just kind of slip under the radar in terms of, being picked up as, someone of interest, perhaps. Listen, I think ultimately she is going to be picked up as someone of interest. Now, I'm not sure how exactly that might play out. It all kind of depends on her interactions with the royal guards and possibly the king. But yeah, as a whole, I'm really quite excited for this, right? As Nav Sensei said a little bit earlier, they've got options. They've got options if I fail. So they've got backup, plan B, plan C perhaps. And yeah, this right here is certainly one of them, right? Infiltrating their spy, the master in disguise. But Nav Sensei also said something earlier as he is infiltrating or beginning to infiltrate the palace. I have nothing to fear. I don't know, man. I disagree. He doesn't know this yet, but he's got plenty to fear. Once he gets on the inside, once he's in close proximity and once he picks up on, their presence, their aura, perhaps that's being, or that's emanating essentially from them. I think there's something interesting on the horizon here. Right, in terms of him potentially, finally kind of getting to understand how Gon and Killua felt in that moment, how Killua specifically felt in that moment, right? Because I go back to that moment, back to episode 85, as Killua had to retreat and take Gon. He's kind of getting a bit of a lesson, both from Nav, from Moral, and, the things they had to say. I remember saying at that point, okay, fair enough, but also you do not know the things that Killua came face to face with, right? The danger, Neferpito's aura, her capability being that close to her. So at this point, I'm also kind of not excited, but interested to see how Nav is going to react to that once he does kind of get close enough to their presence. But even then, it's a really unique situation, isn't it? Because Neferpito's end is not going to be at play, right? Even once he does get inside of the palace, because right now it's being utilized, or a lot of it is being dedicated to the king's reattachment or arm reattachment surgery, right? So I like that. I like that there's limits, right? There's limits to all of them, that they all have limits. But yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed that segment of him beginning to infiltrate and getting closer and closer, inching closer and closer, right? And getting his input beat by beat, getting his assessment of the situation and how he's feeling at the moment. You see that, he's a little bit, not afraid, but he understands, okay, as established as I am, as capable as I am, this is, tense. Right, this is one of the more dangerous elements of their plan, but it's one of the most crucial as well. Him setting up the portals, and yeah, I've got to say I'm content with the explanation I got about the lack of other security or other watchdogs and all of that. It's essentially a ghost town, at least on the outside or near the palace itself. Right? And the palace itself, again, right in the open, that feels like it is by design. Now, all of that being said, I felt that there's maybe a slight hint at a death flag for Nav Sensei, right? Just a slight hint of it. Again, he's going into the fire at this point. He is. But let's shift the focus now to the first half of the episode, because at this point, I am firmly in the middle of a fantastic character relationship. Right, a fantastic character dynamic at play at this point. It's a fantastic bit of writing to pair these two up. Right, like I said, this is a perfect foil to the king. At this point, this character, this lovely girl, the Gungi master, she has the king tied up, right? Completely tied up. She's got the king just questioning everything, just helping him see things in a new light through these encounters, through these experiences, through her really specific reactions to things that are, again, challenging his preconceived notions, his understanding of how things are and how things should be. And like I said, this is completely just based on, his birth, right? This is his understanding since birth on how things should be. This is just really exciting stuff at this point, isn't it? And in addition to me as an audience member, you see that FILMBuFF also picks up on all of this. He has picked up on all of this. He sees now the impact of this new person, right? The hold that this person seems to have over the king, right? And it's not as if she's even trying to have that hold or trying to have that effect on the king, but she's having an effect on the king, and FILMBuFF has certainly picked up on it, right? Because he's seeing the king behave in a manner that he's just not expecting or is used to at all, right? He himself is not able to predict the king's moves or his behavior at this point. And that's about to be a really tricky thing for the royal guards, isn't it? Because the more unpredictable the king gets, the tougher it gets to assist the king, to protect the king. Again, maybe possibly from himself as well, if you look at it from their perspective, if you certainly look at it from FILMBuFF's perspective, in that situation, in that scenario that's kind of taking place in this episode. But I've got to say, I really, really enjoyed the showcase of resolve, be it through the Gungi player, the Gungi master, the young girl, be it FILMBuFF's resolve, right? And courage to stand there in the face of, imminent death, and offer a compromise instead of actually just listening to the king. That's how much he cares about the king, that he's ready to put his life on the line. And I'm sure this is the same for the other two, right? And, as things play out, as things get crazy, as shit hits the fan, and as unpredictable situations come up for them as well, it'll be really, really interesting to see how they react to certain things and how these really unpredictable situations they find themselves in have an effect on them as characters. But going back to our Gungi player, you see that up until this point, right, or before her introduction into the king's life, the king's presence has kept others in suspended terror, right, at all times. That dose, that air of unpredictability, right? And then came this really special little girl who just flipped everything on its head. But you see that there are learning experiences, even for someone like the king, for King Meruem, right, the pinnacle, and all of that. I mean, it's really, really quite the learning experience. It's an eye-opening experience. You see that by the end of that encounter, Meruem has figured out the strength of her character, right? Even if it is by or through this regrettable approach of his, right? This underhanded tactic that he utilized. But also, this is that opening, isn't it? Right? The beginning of Meruem mastering his own emotional self, right? To expand his perspective. Yeah, he understands at this point that he does not completely understand his mind at this moment and how some of these feelings are coming about, right? Or how or why he's feeling some of these things. But, one of the great character moments or growth moments happened because of this encounter. It gave him a clear indication of her unbreakable resolve, right? And at that point, he simply could not stomach the idea of his shallow attempt, right? His pride as well, simply could not allow it, right? And because of that, he gave up his arm. And he didn't give up that arm with the notion that, oh yeah, it can just be reattached, right? Yes, it is being reattached, luckily for him, but, he did it as a permanent, price that he felt that he had to pay at that point. It's a permanent price that he deemed necessary for his misstep. He deemed it a really embarrassing misstep, right? Miscalculation. So I really like that he actually stayed true to his principles, right? There's a code and he's not flimsy about it. He's just not, right? He understood that he made an embarrassing misstep, or he took an embarrassing misstep, and now, he has to do this. He simply does. But also in terms of principles and code, there's going to be another stage, right? Another battle, right? This one's more of an intellectual battle, right? It's certainly an intellectually engaging battle at that. That's why, he really seems to enjoy, but yet he's not able to, quite describe the reasoning for it just yet. But he'll come to it because he's still the king, right? He's an impressive specimen, he's a pinnacle. So he'll certainly learn from these experiences and he'll come to some incredible conclusions. But the point I was making about another stage, I'm speaking of his encounter, his imminent encounter with the chairman, right? That's going to be really interesting as well, right? As far as his principles and codes are concerned, because, it'll be interesting to see how how the chairman actually assesses the king's character, right? And the things he believes in and how he might look to exploit it as well at some point or target it. So, in terms of the dynamic between the king, Meruem, and this young girl, the master Gungi player, so if I was to construct the character map for Meruem right now and kind of go through the 5 primary archetypes, and, the 5 being nemesis, protagonist, attractor, mentor, and trickster, I'd say the girl kind of falls under the attractor category, right? Because I think the framework is there for it. Forging an intimate connection with the protagonist, and in this case, the protagonist being Meruem, right? In this dynamic, in this character relationship. And even though, the term itself or the archetype itself, attractor, might have certain connotations, I don't think it has to be a romantic angle. Just like how I firmly believe that, your soulmate doesn't always have to be a romantic connection, because I truly believe that even best friends can be soulmates, right? It does not have to be romantic. And, I think one of the most important scenes in this episode is also of the girl's background, right? A bit of backstory there. And, through that, you see just how, she became as strong as she is. Her resolve, her unbreakable resolve. And, Meruem gets a new perspective on things, right? That, people have their own struggles, right? And her struggle has shaped her into the best at this specific thing, right? Because, essentially losing is not an option. It simply isn't. It's not just a game. It's a matter of life. Her life, her family's life, family of 12. I mean, that just kind of made my jaw drop. Because, that right there is pressure, right? Immense pressure. I mean, of course, she has immense love for the game. She does. But, at the end of the day, it's not as simple as it being just a hobby, right? It's for survival. And, one of the most heartbreaking things here is the treatment that she receives from her family, right? It's so harsh, so incredibly harsh. This idea of her being garbage if she cannot provide in this manner. Right. And, she's not someone that's sensitive either. Right. She understands, if I'm not able to do this, I am going to be a burden. right? Because again, from her perception, she's just going to be a disabled child that can't do anything for her family. And it's going to be another, issue or another problem for that family that's struggling, right? And, there's even a possibility here, and I kind of touched up on it during the episode itself, that, this resolve of hers, that, she truly believes that, if I lose at a match, if I lose a Gungi match, and if I'm not the, champion anymore, and it's a tough road to be the champion, right? To get yourself in a position to even challenge to be the champion, then, there's no point, that she must forfeit her life, that she would easily take her life if that was the case. So, to me, it felt like, okay, maybe she's unknowingly kind of set this condition that kind of enhances her ability as well. It kind of goes back to Zepile, someone so good at the things that he does, right? His craft, that, you see that his nen is all over his work. And also you kind of get a look at how people manage out here, right? Again, the family of 12, it just seems so irresponsible, doesn't it? But again, this is not something new. Of course, a lack of education plays a part, a lack of access to health services plays a part, religious beliefs, social reputation, family legacy, perhaps, right? Limited finances is probably the key component of this, right? Because, it's tough times out there for these people, right? You've got people like Digo, you've got people like that insider who's trying to flip, living in large. You've got the secretary. Yeah, going back to the limited finances aspect of it. Yeah, these children are essentially meant to help. They are being used as an asset, right? And ultimately, it falls on these tiny shoulders as well, right? This Gungi player. So yeah, I thought it's really great that Meruem gets that perspective that, life is tough for some of these people. Not everyone's born to be, the pinnacle, to be the king, to be in this position, right? Some people have to tough it out, right? And, you see that sometimes, these conditions, these harsh living conditions in life, it can break people, or it could also develop diamonds, right? People that have unbreakable resolve, and you have one right here in this lovely young girl, right? The Gungi player, who is so important at this point to someone like Meruem, and, the shaping of his character. Again, it always goes back to that confirmation by the narrator himself, right? She is going to be shaping his fate. And I'm really here for that, man. I am. I'm excited for this. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page and, potentially supporting the channel as well. In the process, the links are in the description and the pinned comment, also links to social media. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.